Hello dear, how are you? I hope that you are all doing well and staying safe at home. This is the lecture video for lecture 9 week 12, and in this video we're going to cover grammar and writing. The contents of this lecture. At the end of this lecture you'll be able to identify the usage of simple present tense. We're going to know when to use the simple present tense, form and use the simple present tense correctly. So we have to form and use the verbs in the simple present tense correctly. Use the subject verb agreement. There's something we have to pay attention to in the simple present tense, which is the agreement between the subject and the verb. And at the end we're going to produce a process paragraph. When say process, we mean how to. Okay, so let's start. The use of the simple present tense. I'm going to start with the grammar part, the simple present tense. Let's see when we must use the simple present tense. Present simple is used for the following purposes. 1. Repeated actions. Repeated actions, or we say habitual actions, actions that are as a habit. Facts. Facts, real information about something or someone. General truths. General truths related to science mostly. In jokes and storytelling. And also for future events that are scheduled. Events in the future that are precised when they must happen. We use for them the simple present tense. And also with the stative verbs, or the verbs that are related to the senses and feelings. Okay, so the usage for the simple present tense, or the purposes to use the simple present tense, are repeated actions, facts, general truths, jokes and storytelling, future events that are scheduled, and state. Let's start first with the repeated actions. What do we mean by repeated actions? Let's see. Repeated actions are actions in the present taking place once, never, or several times. They take once or one time in the present. They are never taking place in the present, or they happen for several times. Example: Ner always plays soccer on Tuesdays. Always on Tuesdays. If you notice here, we're mentioning on Tuesdays. We mean that every Tuesday he plays soccer. Ner plays football regularly. Regularly, we mean there is a certain time in the present that he always plays football. When he always plays football regularly, we mean like every Tuesday, every Monday, every weekend, for example. So these are the repeated actions, or as we can call them habitual actions, because these actions become as habits. Other than the repeated actions, we have to pay attention to the time expressions. If you notice in the sentences before, I used a word like always, and I used a word like regularly or every Tuesday. So these are called time expressions, time words, to show that the actions are happening in the present. Examples of time expressions: always, generally, frequently, never, often, rarely, always, generally, frequently, never, often, rarely, seldom, sometimes, usually, every day or every year, for example, once a week, once a month, once a year, we mean one time a year, twice a year, two times a year, twice a week, we mean two times a week. Also we can use twice a year, I also mentioned it. So these are the most time expressions used, and we still have other time expressions. We can use them to show that the actions are happening in the simple present tense. Through practice you can master them. Now we move to the facts. Facts. What do we mean by facts? When we want to state a fact or ask a question without any time reference, we use the present simple tense. When we're asking about something real, okay, it's not necessary to mention a time reference, so we use the simple present tense. Example, she plays football but she doesn't play tennis. This is a fact about the girl. This is a real information about her. She plays football but she doesn't play tennis. Sorry, she plays football but she doesn't play tennis. So this is a fact. For example, a fact about me, I don't like to drink milk. I don't like milk, but I like Nescafe, for example. So this is a fact. For breakfast, he eats rice and drinks cold milk. This is a fact about him. He takes for breakfast rice and drinks cold milk. He eats rice and drinks cold milk. So I have to use the simple present tense. Sorry, I have to use the simple present tense. She works very hard. She works very hard, or she is a hard worker. She works very hard. So you see here, it's a fact about her. So we use the simple present tense, real information about her. My friend speaks 4 languages. My friend speaks 4 languages. So this is a fact. It's not necessary to use any other tense. We use the simple present tense. General truths. Let's see what are the general truths. Statements about rules of nature and the way the world is. Rules of nature and the way the world is. How the world is and how nature works or how science works. So they are called general truths. We use them or we mention them in the present tense. Okay? So the general truths are always in the present tense. Example, the sun sets in the west. The sun sets in the west. This is a general truth. This is about nature. The sun sets in the west. Most babies learn to speak when they are about 2 years old. Most babies learn to speak when they are about 2 years old. Okay, this is a general truth, and here I use the verb learn in the present tense, and here I use the verb sets in the present tense. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, this is a truth. If you boil water, when the temperature reaches 100%, then the water boils. So the verb here is in the simple present tense. The water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Trees lose their leaves in the fall. This is also a general truth. Okay, this is true. So trees lose their leaves in the fall season. Stative verbs. Let's see what we mean by stative verbs. We use the present simple for many verbs of thinking, feeling, and sensing. So when the verbs are about thinking or feeling or sensing, we mean related to the 5 senses, then we have to use these verbs in the simple present tense. These verbs are called the stative verbs or state verbs. Okay, we call them stative or states. Emotion verbs, emotion we mean feelings, like love or I want or wish or I feel. Mind, the mind or thinking, we mean agree, believe, mean, know, think. Appearance, the appearance also, to talk about the appearance, we use the simple present tense. Look like, resemble, seem. Also verbs of possession, the things that belong to you. Okay, belong, consist, contain, have, need, own. Okay. Perception we mean the senses, like see, hear, taste. All of these are called stative verbs. I love lying in bed late on Sunday mornings. So you see, love here is related to emotions. Okay, so I have to use the simple present tense. I need to know right now. I need to know right now. This is possession. I need to know right now. The positive form or affirmative form of the simple present tense. So whenever I want to form the verb in the simple present tense in the affirmative form, I have to pay attention to one thing. If the subject is singular or plural, because it differs. If the subject is singular, then I must add things to the verb. If the subject is a plural, then I must not add anything to the verb. What do I mean? Let's see. When I have, for example, the subject you, or I, or we, or they, what must I do here? So here the subjects are considered the plural subjects, so they take the verb without adding anything to it. But if the subject is singular, like he, she, or it, I must add s to the verb. I must add what? S. You notice I must add s to the verb when the subject is singular. He, she, it, the boy, the girl, the doctor, the teacher. But if the subject is plural, like you, we, they, or I, or the girls, the cats, the teachers, we do not add anything to the verb. Examples: I play, we read, you clean, they buy. You see, nothing is added to the verb. But when I use singular subjects like he, she, or it, he speaks, I added s to the verb. She cooks, I added s to the verb. It sits, I added s to the verb. So you see the difference? Just when I have singular subjects, I have to add s to the verbs. But do all verbs take only s? Let's see. Spelling rules. The spelling for the verb in the third person differs. When we say third person, we mean the singular subjects. Differs depending on the ending of that verb. So adding the s depends on the ending of the verb. First rule. For verbs that end in o, ch, sh, ss, x, or z. So when the verb ends in one of these letters or blending, we add es to the verb. We add es to the verb just in case I have a singular subject. Example: go, goes, kiss, kisses, catch, catches, fix, fixes, wash, washes, buzz, buzzes. Okay? So whenever the verbs end with o, sh, ch, ss, x, or z, we have to add es to the verb if the subject is singular. For verbs that end in a consonant plus y, consonant plus y, when I have y at the end of the verb but it's preceded, or I have a consonant letter before it, we remove the y and add ies, like marry, marries. You see, I have consonant then y, so I cross out the y and I add ies. Study, studies. Carry, carries. Note, for verbs that end in a vowel plus y, when I have a verb that ends with vowel plus y, we just add s. When I have the verb ends with vowel then y, that I just add s. Example here: play, I have vowel then y, so I add s only. Enjoy, I have vowel then y, so I add s only. Say, I have vowel plus y, then y, so I add s only. Now let's practice. Okay, write the verbs in brackets using the correct form of present simple. I usually go to school. So the verb go. Now I have to pay attention to the subject. The subject I. And we agreed when I have the subject I, then I do not add anything to the verb. So we say I usually go. I do not add anything to the verb. Go. Just go. They visit often us. So here I have time word. Okay, I have to use this time word also with the verb. And visit, the verb is visit, and the subject they is plural. So when I have a plural verb subject, then I should not add anything to the verb. So we say they often visit. We use the time word before the verb here. They often visit. He play basketball once a week. He is singular. So he when I have he, I must add s to the verb. But let's pay attention to something. The verb here ends with vowel, then y, then I just add s, so the verb becomes plays. He plays. Tom work every day. Tom work every day. Tom is singular, so I must add s to the verb. Here I just add s. It ends with k, and it's a regular consonant. So I have to add only s to the verb. We say Tom works every day. Tom works every day. He always fixes broken items. He always fixes broken items. He is singular. And here I have the verb. And I know that when I have singular subject, then I have to add s to the verb. But pay attention that the verb ends with x. Then I have to add s. He always fixes. He always fixes. I added es. She never carry the boxes with me. She is singular. Then I have to add s to the verb. But notice here that I have consonant then y, consonant then y. Then I must cross out the y and I add ies. She never carries the boxes with me. Now I have finished from the affirmative or positive form. I have to move to the negative form. Negative. When I say negative, I mean not. When I say negative, I mean not. But can I only use not in the sentence? For sure, no. What must I use with not in the simple present tense? So I must use does not or do not for the negative form. How? Let's see. To make a negative sentence in English, we normally use don't or doesn't with all verbs except the verb to be and modal verbs can, might, should. So whenever I want to use the negative in the simple present tense, I have to use don't or doesn't. Don't or doesn't. But when I have verb to be, I do not use them. And when I have modal verbs like can, might, or should, I do not use don't or doesn't. Okay? Let's see how we form the negative sentences now. First of all, if I have I, we, you, or they, or plural subject, I have to use after the subject don't. I have to use don't. Then I write the verb. Then if I have singular subject, like he, she, or it, I have to use doesn't, then the verb. So if you notice that whenever I have plural subject, I, we, you, or they, I have to use don't, then the verb. But when I have he, she, or it, or singular subject, I have to use doesn't, then the verb. Examples: you don't speak Arabic. You don't speak Arabic. You see, you takes don't. John doesn't speak Italian. John doesn't speak Italian. And if you notice here, when I use doesn't, I didn't add s to the verb. Okay? So when I use doesn't, I do not add s to the verb. Another example: we don't have time for a rest. We don't have time for a rest. It doesn't move. You see, doesn't. Here I have we, so it takes don't. Here I have it, so it takes doesn't. And also I remind you that when I use doesn't with the singular subject, I do not add s to the verb. Change the affirmative sentences into negative sentences. Okay? Let's change the affirmative sentences now into negative sentences. Ben studies at the library. Ben studies at the library. Here I have Ben. So Ben is singular. And whenever I have a singular subject, I must use doesn't. So I say Ben doesn't study. I do not say studies. I say study. I have to remove the ies. So we say Ben doesn't study at the library. Why did I remove the ies? Because I have doesn't. So I replace the ies with the original y. So we say Ben doesn't study at the library. They clean the bathroom daily. They clean the bathroom daily. They is a plural subject, so I know that the rule says when I have a plural subject I have to use don't. They, then don't. They don't clean the bathroom daily. They don't clean the bathroom daily. Now the questions form or the interrogative form. Interrogative. Okay, now how to form the question in the simple present tense. Yes, no questions. Let's start with the yes, no questions. When we say yes, no question, we mean the question that has an answer as yes or no. When I want to, when I have in the main sentence a plural subject, so I have to start with do. Do, then the subject, I, you, we, or they, or the girls, or the boys, then the verb, okay? If I have singular subject, I have to start with does. Does he, does she, does it, for example, then I write the verb. Okay, then I write the rest of the sentence and I add a question mark at the end. So if I have a plural subject, I have to start with do, then I write the subject, then I write the verb without adding anything to the verb. Also, if I have a singular subject, I start with does, then I write the subject, then I write the verb without adding anything to it. Example, does he play computer games every evening? Does he play? Does he play? Does, then the subject, then the verb. And if you notice, I didn't add any s's to the verb. Does he play computer games every morning, every evening? Now, if I have WH non-subject question, okay, WH word, a question that starts with WH word. Who or the WH word, I start with the WH word, then do or does, it depends on the subject, do or does, then the subject, then the verb, then the rest of the sentence and a question mark. Example, where does she spend her free time? Where, the WH word, then does, I use does here because I have she and she is singular, so I have to use does. Where does she, then the verb spend. Where does she spend her free time? So this is how I form the interrogative sentences in the simple present tense. Now, what about the questions when having the verb to be? How do I form the question when I have the verb to be in the sentence? Okay, so the verb to be is am, is, or are. So I start directly with am, then I write after it I. Or if I have are, I say are, we, they, or you. Is, she, he, or it. Then I write the rest of the sentence, then a question mark. So if you notice here, when having a verb to be in the sentence, I just switch the places between the verb to be and the subject to form a question. So I say am I, are you, are they, are we, is he, is she, is it, then the rest of the sentence and a question mark. Examples, are you at the club? You see, are you, are you. Is she at the club? Is she, is she. Am I at the club? Am I. Okay, so this is how we form the questions with the verb to be. Make a question out of each group of words. Make a question. Now let's make a question. You speak English. I have to make a question. What is the subject here? You. Okay? So here I do not have a WH word, so I simply must use do or does. You takes what? You takes do. So I start with do. Do, then the subject. You, do you, then the verb. Do you speak English? Question mark. Do you speak English? Question mark. 2. I have the WH word when here, so I have to start with the WH word. After the WH word, I use do or does. But here the subject is he. He is singular, so it takes does. So I say, when does he go home? When does he go home? Question mark. When does he go home? Question mark. Now where they ride their bike. I have to use the WH word, where. And after it I have to use do or does. Let's see the subject they, so they takes do. Where do they ride their bike? Question mark. Where do they ride their bike? Question mark. Awesome, that's right. I hope that everything is clear for you now in the grammar. It's time to move to the writing now. In the writing, we're going to cover the process paragraph, or we call it how to paragraph. Whenever we say how to, we mean we have steps. Okay, we have steps. What do I mean by steps? Now let's see. What is a process paragraph first of all? A process paragraph describes the steps necessary to perform a process or task. So whenever we say process paragraph, we mean there is a process, a procedure, a task, a job we have to do. And in order to do this job, we have to follow steps. So also I remind you that here it's a process paragraph, it's a paragraph. Then I have to start with a topic sentence, I have to add details, and I have to add concluding sentence. So what must I write in the topic sentence of a process paragraph? How to write a process paragraph? The topic sentence. The topic sentence introduces the process that the writer will explain. For example, I'm writing a process paragraph about baking a cake. I want to tell you the steps how to bake a cake. So in the topic sentence I have to mention the process. The process is baking a cake. So I must mention the process in the topic sentence, and I must tell in the topic sentence that I will give you the steps to do this process. So the topic sentence introduces the process that the writer will explain. What about the supporting details? The middle sentences describe a sequence of steps. We mean the steps in the correct chronological order or in the correct time order that give detailed information about the stages of the process, detailed information about how to perform this process. They give background details that help the writer explain why this process is useful or necessary and include the tools needed for the task. So also in the details I mention why is it important, or why this process is important or useful, and if we have tools we must use while performing this process, also we have to mention these tools in the details. Now last I have to write the concluding sentence. The paragraph ends with a concluding sentence that restates the topic sentence using different words. So in the concluding sentence I can simply just restate the topic sentence but in totally different words, okay, or it includes a suggestion or writing to help the reader do the task more easily. Okay, so that's it. That's how we have to write a process paragraph. We have to mention in the topic sentence the process, in the details the steps that I must follow to do this process, and in the concluding sentence either a suggestion or restating the topic sentence in different words. There's something very important you have to use while writing a process paragraph, which are the time order words. These time order words help you to write the steps in the correct order and to make your paragraph stronger. These words are first, for example, second, next, then, later, after that, finally. Notice that all the words are followed with a comma except then. Then is not followed by a comma. Also, we can use before and after. Example, before you close your suitcase, check your list. Or begin packing after you have eliminated all unnecessary items. A graphic organizer. There's something very important you have to know, which is the graphic organizer. This graphic organizer organizes your ideas before starting with your paragraph. It helps you organize the steps correctly, okay? It's not necessary to all the time write 6 steps. You might write 5, you might write 4, you might write 7 or 8. It depends on the process that you have to talk about. And for sure, we must not forget the title, the topic sentence, and the concluding sentence. Pay attention in the organizer. I do not write long sentences. I just write short points or very short sentences, because later in my paragraph I can develop these ideas. Let's have an example about process paragraph. How to be a high achiever. This is the title, How to be a high achiever. From the title, I can guess what's the process. Let's read the topic sentence. To be a high achiever at school, you should follow these steps. Excellent. So, to be a high achiever at school, the process is being a high achiever. You should follow these steps. So then the writer is going to mention steps in the details. First shows the first step. Pay attention to the explanation in the class. This is the first step. Every single detail the teacher says is very important. This supports the first step. And so you see here I'm developing my ideas and I'm giving more information. Also, here is a second step. Also, do your homework on time and do not delay it. Do it on time. Do not postpone it. Moreover, you see the time words or the linking words. Moreover, revise your lessons daily. This way, you will improve your memory. Okay? So you see, this information also supports the third step. Okay? Revising your lessons. The most important step, you see the most important steps, this is another step, is never to let your friends have a bad influence on you. Okay? Not to let your friends have a bad influence on you. To conclude shows me that I have reached the conclusion, the concluding sentence, then I'm going to end my paragraph. Following these steps will help you to be a brilliant student. If you notice, I restated the topic sentence. I mentioned the topic sentence again, but in totally different words, as if I used synonyms, meanings to the word that I used in the topic sentence. So that's how you write a process paragraph. Guys, we have reached the end of our lecture video. I hope everything is clear for you. And now it's time to revise everything again and to get prepared to the live session later in case you have any questions, and to solve the worksheet that is going to be uploaded later on the application. Okay? Watch the video more than one time to master everything explained in it. Stay safe and bye-bye.